So we're on to our next speaker. He is called Gordon Hardiman, aka the Ginger Veg Man. Well done on getting there first with that name, it's brilliant. He's an engineer by trade. He's passionate about soil's ability to have healthier people and to help the planet. And he is going to talk to us today about regenerative agriculture and for a healthier planet. Give it up for Gordon, everybody.
How's it going? Great to see such a packed house. It's great to be back in Westport. I've actually spent a lot of time here. I learned, I came out of college as a science and engineering student and actually started, well, you can guess where, up the road. And I learned a heck of a lot about medical devices and pharmaceuticals, and I was privileged to do so. But I also saw at the same time there was some things happening in society with some health, diseases were increasing that I just wasn't too happy with. And by day, I was well able to go and help people create medicines, but I just had this nagging feeling as an engineer, is there any way we could help prevent some of these diseases? And I was also expecting my first kid, and this climate question was starting to drum up in my head. And as an engineer, we're kind of weird. We go off and we dig into things, and I'm maybe a bit weirder. I just can't get something out of my head until I figure out the solution. So if you're ever looking for a few endless nights, just start digging into the soil and trying to figure out climate change and nutrition, and you'll be well up for 6 a.m. any day of the week. And what started off was just a nagging question. I basically flipped and started to set up an organic growing company where I grow organic salads and I sell them all around Galway. To give people healthy food. I just thought if I can make this taste really well, perhaps more people will eat it. And I was surprised that either it's personality in terms of people got to know me, or we grow certain crops to a high standard, that some people already started to increase their salads, which was humbling. But I also felt there was more we could do. And I say we, are myself, it's primarily me on the farm, but I'm also part of a larger group of people who are trying in Ireland to figure out how do we bring regenerative agriculture into Ireland, which is nutrient-dense food and increasing the carbon that's in soil. So that was a bit of a question for me to solve. So off I went and I started to research that in Galway. The reason that this is, I suppose, important to me is there's a few people who are going to talk on the health aspect, so I'll just quickly glean on it, or touch it. I was fascinated that we regenerate our cells 4 billion times a day, and so that's a pretty amazing organism that we live in every day, and every day we're regenerating that, and our DNA replicates. If it doesn't have the correct minerals in it to do that, we start to create what are genetic mutations or genetic markers and then genetic mutations, and most of the time that's okay, but sometimes that's not okay. So every day that we're missing out on getting the right minerals, chromium, selenium that was mentioned earlier, we miss out the chance to generate a healthy body versus a non-healthy body. So how do we do that in a crop? How do we get that out of the food that we eat? And this is basically, there's theories around the world that are coming in, and we're trying to figure out this in Ireland. But if I can try and explain it to you simply, and I'm going to use an analogy if that's okay with you. What I discovered through my process is we can grow a crop, and basically what you see is a crop standing in a field, classically by, let's say, poor conventional methods. And what it's like is if you've ever seen some of those concrete buildings that have frames up in the boom and bust and never got completed, there's a frame there, there's a structure that's there, but it's not exactly functioning and it's not exactly warming you to come in. And we found is that when we create biological systems, we create whole hotels that are vibrant, that are fully fitted out, that are warm and comforting, and that they bring you to places that you want to be in, that they have all these functioning energy systems in it that people want to be a part of. And that's a biological system, and to me that's a nutritious system. So how the heck does that happen? Right, so what happens is that plants classically, they stand above the ground green. The green part we see, we drive along in our car and that's lovely and green, it looks amazing. 40 shades of green. What happens is that photosynthesizes away for us, and that's dropping. What we may not realize is that 40% of what's going through that plant is actually dropping, not down into its root to grow its roots, but it's actually exudating down into the soil. So what happens then is plants are incredibly smart. It says, I want chromium. So what it actually does is it dumps out a bit of an exudate for chromium. That sends off to a bacteria who goes and eats the soil for chromium and sends it back. And what that does then is that feeds the plant in a plant-friendly form and an energy-friendly form that I can eat that and grow that. That gives you the bit of chromium that you need to make your DNA. So that's interesting. What happens if the biology, or if you saw on the movie earlier, if we're nailing that with all these sides, or we're not creating that biology in the soil that we want, that process doesn't happen. And that's where we struggle. That's where we might have a scaffold that looks like a plant, but it isn't a nutritious plant. And don't worry, you've got a great attribute. 40% of some of your DNA in your mouth and your nose is geared towards you tasting and smelling what a plant is or a tasty plant is. Like we've all had it, like you eat a strawberry and like, geez, that's cardboard. And then you taste this beautiful one, coincidentally we seem to chase for Wexford ones down the summer, but they taste really good. And what's happening is that one is grown well and one is grown poorly. And it's just a case of understanding that. So really, are they grown in biologically alive soil or are they not? That's a question that we're faced with. What I found really interesting is that we work with nature to grow biologically energized soil, but what also is happening is that as that biology is activating in the soil, it's creating fungi, and these fungi reach out even further, and they're releasing molecules like glomerulin and other molecules that are dumping carbon into the soil. So if you want a really tasty food, you get a healthy crop, but you're also dumping carbon into the soil. And the UN has referenced this, that this is the most economically feasible and the fastest way to get carbon into the soil. And there's people like Gabe Brown and others are doing this in the US, and they're increasing their soil organic matter hugely. We're taking carbon from the sky, we're dumping it in the ground, we're making healthier soil, we're creating tastier crops, and we're creating a better return for the farmers in the process. And we've got to try, what we're trying to do, there's a group working on it through tillage practices in Ireland, and there's a few ourselves working it through through vegetable practices. And we're trying to figure out how do we do this in Ireland, because as we all know, there's a little bit of a light issue in Ireland, which kind of impacts photosynthesis. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible. We've very little snow in the winter, and we don't have raging fires in the summer. So we have some good attributes here, and we've great months in April to June. So we're trying to figure out how do we do that. So in Ireland, what we're seeing is through these next couple of years, there is farmers running trials to figure out how to make that possible in Ireland, and I expect more results to come out in the next few years. And from us, I suppose we're asked here to go, how do we tee you up to make some changes if you want? I'm a big believer in small steps. Like, I'm fully invested. You can ask me any question anytime you want about it on figuring this out. But try and take small steps. I've personally changed my diet quite a bit. If you're interested, you can take these. So this is, we've been asked to give you some information. Try and win a meal, either with local apples or a snack, or with local porridge. Kilbeg and Oats is up the road. They'll deliver to you if you order over €30. It stays in the press for ages. You can win breakfast. I'm a big believer in winning breakfast. If you can win breakfast, you'll win the day. And I'll leave it to some of the other speakers to take the next step as well. So.